This sounds like deja vu, but it's not every day that a journalist gets to sit down in front of a new car, let alone an entirely new brand. That's exactly what we have here today. Our spotlight is on this 2019 Genesis G70 3.3-liter twin-turbo sport all-wheel drive. Bit of a mouthful, I know, so we'll just call it the G70 from here on out. But while Toyota was immensely successful launching Lexus, does Hyundai have the right algorithm and the right formula to make it happen for themselves? I personally think that they need to walk first before they can run. So before they get worried about competing with the BMW 3 Series or Mercedes C-Class, we need to see if it competes with something like the Infiniti Q50S or the Acura TLX. Now this isn't a showdown, so we're not going to be comparing it, but we will talk about some of the competition in this very competitive segment. And we're going to be going over everything you need to know if you're in the market for a sub $60,000 compact executive sedan. Now I hope you guys don't mind, I'm going to take a little bit longer to go over this car because it is a new brand for me. I have driven the Hyundai Genesis before, but now that it is its own brand, I do want to spend a little bit of extra time on it. And especially in this color, in this trim, with this model, there's a lot to go over, and I think it's an exciting car for us to spend a little bit of time with. Now this is designed by Peter Schreier, the same guy who designed the Kia Stinger, and it makes sense. It actually shares the same platform as the Kia Stinger. But you wouldn't know if you didn't actually research that beforehand. If you park these two next to each other, they are distinctively different enough that you couldn't tell that they were from the same basic structure. In fact, the front end and sides and back are completely different. There's almost nothing related between the two of them. It's really just the engine, suspension, transmission, and brakes that are shared between the two of them. Everything else is pretty much different. All the body panels here really do have its own distinctive look to it. Now the first thing you'll notice up front here, you've got the Genesis crest on the front, and it has this sloping design that goes through the hood. It's actually really cool, and again, if you didn't look at that, you might not notice it. Furthermore, you have full LED headlighting on the front that includes adaptive headlights. There are no fog lights though, but on a performance-oriented car, we certainly don't expect to find them. You will notice that there is a copper design in the headlight assembly. Genesis says that is their signature color and is a signature look for them, so you will find it throughout vehicles that they produce. These ones are in the headlights here. And I have to say the front end looks really, really nice. Is it luxury oriented? I'd say so. I think this really competes in the design element of something like the BMW 3 Series. Now the 2019 3 Series has been announced and it has changed a little bit, but I really do think it's got a good look to be competitive with the Germans. Aside from that, the front end is relatively straightforward though. You have the hidden, more or less, front sensor for things like active cruise control and forward collision warning. They've made it so that it more or less blends in with the grille, but you certainly can tell that it's there. Aside from that though, the chrome, darkened chrome, runs around the rest of the front, and you have turn signals at the bottom. They're actually kind of similar, in fact, to the Hyundai Elantra that we featured a little while ago, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. You should share your roots with where you came from. I think it's important. Now we're going to move along the rest of the car. You have 19-inch dark chrome rims with the red Brembo brakes. You have automatic power folding mirrors, and then easy access to the front doors with the push of a button. Now let's head around the back quickly to talk about the features there. Now I do like the way the back end of this vehicle looks. It's really nice, elegant, not over the top, but it definitely lets you know that you're here. The LED taillights are a nice touch. You do have the Genesis branding built in to the side of them. And I do like the fact that they actually have amber turn signals on the back here, something that I personally like. A lot of people that I know prefer that over the red ones that a lot of the Germans are using built into the taillights. Now, I really do like the look of it. It's pretty simple though. You've got the G70 badging on the left, Genesis in the middle, HTRAC, which is Hyundai's branding for all-wheel drive, and then the displacement 3.3T. You don't have a power opening trunk, but for the most part it will pop up for you. Trunk size is actually very good for a compact car, and I think that's probably one of the reasons why you do lose interior space, because the trunk is deep enough that you could put quite a bit in there if you needed to. There's a couple little details about the back here. There's a camera where you would expect it to be. The car actually has a 360-degree camera system, and it's one of the best ones that we've seen. The overall image quality is superb. You do have a little bit of a fisheye, a taller perspective when you're using the backup camera with the 360 on the side, but the image quality is outstanding. This is what we expect to see from a vehicle, and something that we talk about a lot on Test Drive here. The quality of the camera is not very good. Genesis, definitely one of the best that we've used so far. You have parking sensors on the front and back of the vehicle. That really wraps up the look of the car here. So now it's time to jump in and talk about the interior. Now when it comes to the interior, the first thing I noticed was how the interior space is laid out in comparison to something, again, like the Kia Stinger. I find it's a little bit smaller in here. I find it's tighter for me to be able to fit in, but not just me. We've had a number of people in here, somebody who was about 6'4", another average height person, 6 foot, who wasn't as big as me, and then another taller person over 6 foot. They all found that the space here, while not completely awful, does feel a little bit tighter than other vehicles in this segment. That's not to say you're going to be uncomfortable in here, and in fact, it's taken me a couple days to get used to it. The one thing you will notice though, and it's not to knock Hyundai, but the easy exit feature really requires the seat to be pushed up a lot more than this. For me, my size, this is how I'm comfortable to sit in this car. But even the other people that I've had sit in here are comfortable here. So the interior space here is small. It is similar, in fact, to the Mercedes-AMG C43. I took a look at that before. Interior space is pretty comparable. I was actually surprised. But it is a little bit smaller than something like the Infiniti Q50 Red Sport we featured a little earlier on. We're going to talk about that later this week if you're watching this new. But for the most part, you have a pretty straightforward design. In fact, I really do like it. Again, it's grown on me a lot more than I thought it would. You have red stitching throughout the dashboard here, which I do believe is completely plastic with the top of the door cards. You do have stitched leather throughout the center console and lower part of the dashboard. The quilted stitched nappa leather on the seats is really nice. And I find that the seats, while they are a little tighter, do provide good support. They are sport-oriented seats. Now the gauge cluster computer is very similar again to the Kia Stinger. It provides all the information that you would need on a daily basis, as well as the color head-up display certainly helps to be able to provide some more information for the driver as they're on the road. It's the center here that's a little different. The 8-inch screen on top is great for a consumer-level car. We really love Hyundai and Kia's infotainment system. But this is a luxury-oriented vehicle. Now compared to Acura, Infiniti, and probably Buick, it's still a better system. But if Hyundai is really targeting the luxury market, BMW's iDrive is phenomenal. Even Mercedes Command is better. So they need to do a little bit more. They might want to look at rearranging everything when it comes to their infotainment if they want this to be a serious luxury contender. Because for me, while it is still a great system, it's not a great luxury system. It's fantastic in the consumer market, but they will need to do more to bring it up to the luxury spec. Now moving down, we've got the audio controls, map, volume, HVAC. It's all laid out quite well, really easy to get to, driver focused, which we like to see on a performance oriented vehicle, heated and ventilated front seats, heated outboard rear seats. There's actually 2 stages for the heated steering wheel as well. And I'm hoping to be able to take that on a road test to be able to see how it works. The last few days here have been relatively warm, so I haven't needed it, but I am hoping to try this 2-stage heated steering wheel within the next little while. A couple of the other features that you get: Qi wireless charging in the center, you have cup holders, your drive mode, traction control, parking sensors and all that, electronic parking brake, and you have an updated HomeLink system. It's actually really cool if you haven't used one of these mirrors before. You have 3 HomeLink buttons along with your SOS and tow button, but when you actually use the button, it will light up and tell you if it's getting signal from the garage, and it will tell you if the garage door is opening or closing. It's a really neat feature to have. It also uses the same security module found on something like an older BMW, even new vehicles from BMW, where the vehicle has to be on. At least the accessory power needs to be running for HomeLink to work. Now, why is that great? Maybe not so much if you're sitting in the garage, you have to start the car a little bit and then open it. But if you park your car outside for whatever reason and somebody breaks in, they've got your garage door now. They can open it up and get into your house. With this, they need the key for it to work. You might not think about it now, but it is a very important feature to have if you use HomeLink. Now, a couple other things before we move on to our road test. You do have a very large sunroof up top. I find that it has a good amount of light coming into it. Again, it slides above the roofline instead of into it. You have LED lights throughout, and the backseat space not very usable. Unfortunately, I don't really think I could fit in it. We've put people into the backseat just to test it out. Nobody's been comfortable except for my daughter, and even she's a little tight back there. But again, this is a compact executive sedan. Most people might be looking at this not as a family hauler, but as something to drive back and forth to work and have some fun doing it. But speaking of which, we're going to have to take it on the road now to figure out if this is really a performance-oriented vehicle or if it's more luxury-oriented. So let's hit the road in the Genesis G70. I have to say that I can't ask for a nicer day to be able to film this driving segment. It's just beautiful out. I think one of my favorite parts of living out here in Quebec now is fall. It's just gorgeous. All the trees everywhere, the colors. really looks nice, and I hope that you can appreciate it in the video that we're producing here this week, because we're right in the sweet spot of just how nice all the trees are and everything around it, because probably in a couple weeks it's going to be snowing and things aren't going to be as fun anymore. But let's talk about this car. Again, we've mentioned it, it's very similar to the Kia Stinger. I find that it performs just as good as the Kia Stinger did, and that was a phenomenal car, especially for the price. Now this one is a little bit more, it's about $8,000 Canadian more than the Kia Stinger, but I think you do get something different for that price. You know, we were getting noticed a lot with this car during the week. A lot of people were checking it out. And again, same thing with the Stinger as well. But Genesis really is doing something that hasn't been done since the 90s, right? When Lexus came out, people were surprised. They were shocked. They thought, wow, okay, so you've got Toyota, known for reliability, making luxury cars that make sense. Now, Hyundai doesn't have that same repertoire, right? They're not known for their reliability. Maybe within the last couple of years, they've definitely improved the quality of their vehicles. So now is a great time for them to launch this new brand. And with 3 cars, they certainly have a wide range of vehicles to choose from. I think it fits in quite well with what they're trying to do. This is a sportier vehicle. It's not as much luxury oriented, even though the interior here is quite nice. But the thing I do like about it is how well it performs. Now, we've been in eco mode this whole time, and one thing to note is it will keep that eco mode setting from the previous drive. So we're usually in sport mode, which you have to set it every time you get in the car. But sport mode will firm up the seat bolsters on the side. I can feel it hugging me. It tightens up the steering, adjusts the suspension, also changes the all-wheel drive system to be a little bit more rear-wheel drive bias, and also improves the amount of time it takes to shift up a gear. So for example, oh yeah, there we go. Just great amount of power for this car. It's the one thing I really like about this V6 twin turbo engine is you get power pretty much all the time. And we were looking at some of the numbers, something like the Infiniti Q50S that we featured before. That car makes its 400 horsepower higher up in the rev count than this car does, both for torque and horsepower. And it's noticeable. I think that this car does perform better than a lot of cars out there on the market, and especially for the price. I mean, you are looking at roughly the same price for a lot of vehicles. It's something that we talked about when we did the Infiniti Q50S video. They perform pretty similarly. They're pretty much priced, you know, in the same ballpark. Mercedes, BMW are going to be more by about 10 grand, give or take what you option on it. But I got to say, for $58,000, this is a really spectacular car to drive. And again, it's one that it's taken a couple days for me to get more into. When I first picked it up, my expectations were high, and maybe they weren't quite fulfilled when I first picked it up. But after driving it, after spending more and more time with it each day, I really got to like it a lot more. Now, something we don't usually do is talk about launch control. So you're supposed to put it in sport mode, hold down the traction control button for 3 seconds, and then you put your foot on the brake, put your foot on the gas. It says launch control ready. We're sitting around 2,250 RPM. Oh, and then it cuts down. You have to do it pretty quick. Not enough time for me to explain it. So let's try it again. Mash it down. Whoa, 100. Oh man, that was pretty damn close. This car is supposed to do 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 4.7 seconds. Now, I'm a big guy. Again, you guys like to remind me all the time. So it's probably a little bit slower than that, and we don't have a way to time it. You do have a track timer on this car. You can decide, you know, if you're on a lap, you can push the button and it'll kind of do it. I don't think it does it automatically, so you'd have to make sure you push it, but it really isn't meant for that. I don't think people are going to be taking this car on a racetrack. They might, I could be wrong, but I think most people are going to be buying this because they want to join this new brand, right? Again, we're talking about a new community here, a new enthusiast community built around a completely new vehicle. And it's not like Genesis is new from the ground up, right? But neither was Lexus when it was first created. So I think this still is a very special vehicle to be able to drive. I think people are going to appreciate having something new and something unique. It's a head turner. It performs well. It looks great too. There's no arguing that this car looks really great on the road, especially in this blue color. It just pops everywhere you take it. So there's a lot going for this car, and I think that's one of the reasons why this will start to pick up sales. We've seen a few of them here. We're going to probably be seeing a lot more of them. And I think even when people have them, when there are more of them on the road and people see them more often, I think people will still look at it. It will still be a vehicle that people are interested to see. Now you can see here, oh man, took that corner really quick and it just goes, man. These aren't even like super sport tires. These are Michelin Pilot Sports, but they grip really well. And I can take this corner, quite a bit quicker than I'm supposed to. And unlike a lot of cars that I take through here, I might not always film them going through that corner, but I usually do take the performance cars through here. This one, I'm really happy to take it through it. Essentially, we did that at 136 kilometers an hour because this car performs well. I don't have any worry about it. I know it'll hug that corner the way it's supposed to. I know it'll grip. I know it'll turn because this is engineered beyond belief. And that's something that we hear a lot when we're doing the comments. We go through the Kia Stinger video because, again, this really is a Kia Stinger in disguise, right? This is a car that a lot of people write off right away because they think it's South Korean, I'm not going to bother with it, don't want it. If that's your mentality, you are missing out on a fantastic vehicle. You are doing yourself a disservice if you don't consider these cars. If you're in the market for a compact executive sedan, your budget's under $60,000 Canadian, and you don't look at this car, you're in for a big disappointment.
There really is a lot going for the Genesis G70, and it's an important vehicle for the brand to launch, especially with the wide range of trims available. This will become a top seller based on price and performance, so it's crucial for Genesis to get it right. As mentioned, it took me a few days to really warm up to this car. The interior size was certainly an adjustment for me, but after spending a week with this car, I really came to like it. First off, performance is right up there with the near-performance vehicles like the Mercedes-AMG C43, BMW 340i, and Infiniti Q50 Red Sport. We also found that the ride and handling to be excellent in this segment, standing out against some of the other vehicles we've driven this year. Interior trim and layout is functional and elegant, and that 360-degree camera system is one of the highest resolution setups we've tested to date. Finally, the G70's unique characteristics help to make this compact executive sedan stand out amongst its German and Japanese rivals. While this is the first model year for the G70, we expect Hyundai to improve the vehicle with small changes each year. First, we'd love to see a more luxury-oriented infotainment setup, much like the G90 or Kia K900. Again, the infotainment is one of our top picks in the consumer segment, but does fall short of the luxury systems like iDrive or Command. Interior space was also a dislike for us. While there likely won't be much change considering its slightly shorter wheelbase over its Kia Stinger brother, it is important to note that passenger space might be a little more snug than you're used to. And keeping in line with what we said about the 2018 Kia Stinger, we do want to see more performance-oriented options through the cluster or center computer systems beyond just torque and oil temperature. But overall, the Genesis G70 is a serious competitor in either the premium or luxury segments. They've got their eye on BMW by the looks of it, and if Genesis can continue to deliver this experience through their model and trim lineup, we expect they'll be incredibly successful. Thanks for watching this episode of Test Drive Spotlight on the 2019 Genesis G70 3.3T Sport All-Wheel Drive. Do you think Genesis has what it takes to become a successful luxury brand the same way Toyota has with Lexus? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like this episode and subscribe to our channel if you haven't done so already. Until next time, take care.